All right, friends, welcome in. Usually when we do clinics, I go around and I ask everyone to say their name, and I say what they'd like to get out of this clinic. If we did that right now, we would be here all day. So we're not going to do that. But today's all about the knee. And I kind of want to prove my point with the amount of people in this room that I could ask everyone right now, what do you think is wrong with your knee? And the real answer of what's going on with your knee and why you feel pain in the knee, we would have this many different answers, right? What you've done for the past however many years has gotten you to where the wear and tear or whatever has happened to this knee. There's many, many different reasons why you feel pain, and pain is a very sensitive and emotional subject, and there's a lot of people that they get very defensive when we talk about pain because it's something that's like if you've ever been in like really bad pain, it's one of the worst things that you could go through. And if you have anyone in your life that experiences chronic pain or severe debilitating pain, you feel for them. It's like something that is just like, you don't wish it on anyone. So we're going to go over the mechanics. And what I've found is when you understand the baseline, the very baseline mechanics of what is going on with whatever topic, you can then utilize that information to be able to help you get to where you want to be. And I feel like this is like everything in life. If you can kind of break down the basics of what things are, you can easily get to where you want to go. Everyone in here is going to have different things that work when it comes to the exercises that we do, the stretches. There's going to be things that are just like absolutely a no-go, and that's totally fine. So we're going to talk about a little bit of a list of things, breaking down the knee, the anatomy. We're going to break down all the things that could go wrong with the knee, all the things that people experience when training because of the knee. Every day, I would say every session, someone tells me that their knee hurts really bad. So that's been, I've coached over 10,000 group fitness classes. I've heard it, and I know it, and I feel for it, and I'm pretty passionate about the knee. The knee is something that I dove into when it comes to researching just what the heck is going on here for the last like 10 years, because I've experienced, find any anywhere, you can share it. I think Troy's got a spot right next to him if you want. I've been passionate about the knee only because I feel like I've been in a lifelong battle with knee pain. It has been so frustrating, and I don't wish it on anyone. So my knee pain story, I've told this in class a lot. I've had two pretty dramatic injuries in my life, and the first one came from when I was going up for a dunk playing basketball, and before I even left the ground, everyone in the gym heard a big snap. And I went up in the air, and I was 6 feet in the air, and I fell flat on my back, and I was like, oh, I felt like my back was the worst thing that hurt at the time. And then I looked down, and my kneecap had been pulled up into my quad. So what had happened was, I had patellar tendonitis for my whole life called jumper's knee, and that means that this tendon here, it would swell and it would go back, and it would swell and it would go back. And every day I would take 6 ibuprofen in the morning, 6 ibuprofen at night. This was before we knew anything about this is before I knew anything about what ibuprofen does to the kidneys and the liver. So all that swelling and decreased swelling and coming back, it's like a rubber band. When you pull a rubber band and you come back, it just, one day it snapped. So this entire ligament, it snapped, and my kneecap is attached to my quad, and my quad pulled my kneecap up into my thigh. So they had to cut me open from the mid-thigh to the mid-shin, and you can still see a huge scar right here. And they pulled my kneecap down, drilled holes into it, and then sewed it back with nylon rope. 9 months on crutches, 3 months walking in a boot. It was a terrible recovery, but I can now sprint faster, run faster, jump higher, and lift heavier than I ever could. That shows how resilient the body is. That shows how the body restores. And I know I was in my 20s, so a lot of you are thinking like, okay, yes, but it's harder as you get older, for sure. But the body regenerates. The body regenerates. If you cut your skin, it regenerates. So we can use that as motivation to be able to understand that, okay, where we're at doesn't have to be where we need to stay, and it doesn't mean that we have to slowly decline. We can maintain or even increase and be a little bit healthier and stronger, especially if we strengthen the supporting muscles. The other injury I had was I was going up, if anyone's played basketball, you probably have had this happen. I was going up for a rebound, I stepped on someone's foot, and my ankle went this way. And what you have is you have 2 leg bones, and you have 2 circular bones on your ankle. One's called your calcaneus, and one's called your talus. And usually when you dislocate your ankle, you have your 2 leg bones, and you dislocate that talus out of the leg bones. I dislocated the 2 bones, the talus and the calcaneus, so my foot looked like a golf club going that way. Luckily, they cut my shoe off, and they popped it back. No tears or breaks or anything like that. It was crazy. That was a much better recovery process. But what happened was this ankle didn't heal properly because I was an athlete and I didn't let it heal properly. I didn't take the amount of time or the training to do it. And so I had deficiencies in my ankle forever. And what we're going to talk about today is how things can stem from the ground up. So things can happen from your foot up to your ankle into your knee. The knee is usually the victim. The knee is not usually where the source of the pain is or what the pain comes from. It's usually a joint above or below. So let's talk about the anatomy of the knee really quick, just to break it down, just in case no one has ever seen the inside of a knee before. Let's see how this volume works.
Hi, my name is Dr. Lee Hickman, and I'm a physical therapist and the owner of Lake Physical Therapy. Today's video is going to focus on the anatomy of the knee joint, and this is in preparation for me talking about a very common knee diagnosis called patellofemoral syndrome, which I'll talk about in the next video. So, first thing I'm going to talk about is what's the knee joint actually made of. So, the knee, first of all, a joint is anywhere the two bones meet. And the knee joint actually has three bones that are a part of it, or three main bones that are a part of it. So, this is actually a right knee model. And this is your femur, the end of your femur bone, which is your thigh bone. This is your tibia, your lower leg bone. And then there's your patella, your kneecap. And I don't know if you can see this real well, but your patella is a floating bone. And it actually sits in this little groove that's formed at the end of the femur. So, one of the most common movements that your knee joint does is it bends. It's kind of like a hinge. And that patella will slide in that groove a little bit and stay positioned pretty close to it. Straightening your knee, that action is done by your quadriceps muscle, which is your thigh muscle. And bending your knee is done by your hamstrings, which are the muscles in the back. Your knee joint also has 4 ligaments. Ligaments connect bones to each other. It's a piece of connective tissue. They are not meant to be stretchy. They actually check or control for movement. You have 4 main ligaments in the knee. You have your MCL and your medial collateral ligament, your LCL, which is your lateral collateral ligament. And then in the knee joint, you actually have 2 ligaments that cross each other from front to back. One is your ACL, or your anterior cruciate ligament, and the other is your PCL, which comes from the back, your posterior cruciate ligament. So this, your ACL, comes from the front part of the knee and dives back to the back of the joint, and the PCL comes from the back of the joint and dives to the front of the joint. All 4 ligaments together help to control movement and prevent the knee from moving too far, from the femur moving too far away from the tibia, and from the tibia moving too far away from the femur.
Okay, so I know that's a review. Most people already know that. But it's super important to understand that the structure and the alignment of that joint is so important to be able to have optimal performance. So if any deviation from that, I call this the train on the train track. If there's any deviation from that train on the train track, it can happen from the ankle. Watch how subtle this is. If my ankle is pronated, is turned in just a little bit, now that kneecap is kind of angled that way, right? So if I do a bunch of squats like this, right? That kneecap is now grinding out of the groove, and that's going to cause discomfort. Cool? It's the same thing from the hip. If the hip buckles in, if the hip buckles out, if there's any deviation from alignment. So you can see, like, when I walk up to you and I'm coaching you and I'm like, just barely, you're like, come on, man, I'm just trying to do squats. It's actually because I'm trying to put you in alignment so that you can strengthen those muscles in the right position in order to not feel pain. And the more that you do movements out of alignment, the more that you're taking those bones and you're grinding those bones together. You have little discs inside your bones, which we'll see in just a second, meniscus, that get grinded down. And over time, they wear down. And when those things grind down and you feel bone on bone, it's like, it's over. It's not over, but it's painful and it sucks. Meniscus stuff is the worst. So today we're going to go over self-diagnosing. Now, obviously, I'm not a doctor. I also, you know that I've done a lot of research and I'm very passionate about this, but if anything causes pain or if like I tell you that this is what is, if you think that this is what the injury is, obviously see a physical therapist, see a doctor first before you really go into all this stuff, but let's stand up really quick and I want to do a quick meniscus test. We'll do a meniscus test for everyone just to get this one out of the way. You might have to hold on to something behind you. Bikes, you can hold on to the bike seat. Rowers, you can hold on to the rower top. What we're going to do is we're going to take the leg. If you have one knee that hurts, take the other leg and do this first. If this hurts at all, please don't do this, but you'll know that this is a positive test for something going on in your meniscus. So let's say my right knee is the one that hurts. I want to take my left knee first just to see how it feels. Take it straight and then give it a 5-degree bend. From here, I want you to rotate around and I want you to feel like you're twisting that bone. Take your hip behind and take your hip before. If there is any sharp pain when you do this, it's positive that there's something going on with your meniscus when they do a test. Now, if there's nothing there, bend the knee a little bit more at 15 degrees, and this is a different part of the meniscus, and try from there. Be gentle, be careful. Did anyone feel any sharp pain when they do this? Okay, now let's try the other leg and see if there's any differences or imbalances. Just take it straight, 5-degree bend, and go ahead and rotate side to side. And then take that bend to 15 degrees. It's probably more than 15 degrees, but you know what I mean. And then do that same test. Anybody feel any positive tests there? Okay, a little sharp pain. A sharp pain? Not a sharp pain, but I did. A little, okay, so maybe, possibly. Here's another one. You don't have to hold on anything. You're going to go elbows on the thighs, if you can, and you're going to do a duck walk. Forward and back. If any sharp pains, yes, there's going to be muscular discomfort, there's going to be stuff like that, but if there's any sharp pains when you do that, possibly meniscus. Anyone on that one? Okay, so just keep that in mind when we talk through these exercises and stretching stuff. Just if you did not feel anything on any of those, that's good news. That's really good news. That means that we can really get out of knee pain a little bit faster. The meniscus stuff might take a little bit of time because it's an actual tissue that we need to heal. Go ahead and, if you want to stand or have a seat. Okay, the other ones, ligaments. So it could be, these are all the things that could be happening with your knee. Meniscus, ligaments. Now ligaments, we can pretty much rule ligaments out for all of us in here unless you've had a previous injury. Those ligaments are like tight bands that hold your knee stable. And the number one thing that happens in sports is someone gets their foot pinned down and then they twist, and that ligament that's holding it stable snaps all the way, or at least tears pretty significantly. If you haven't had anything like that, and ligaments are actually like, you can hear them when they pop, you can hear them. So if that doesn't happen to you, we can probably rule out ligaments. If it is a ligament, you probably need to demobilize, you need to probably brace that, and you probably need to do some rehab, and you have to make sure that that heals the right way. There's lots of different ways to do that, and if you do have a ligament injury, let me know after this and we can talk through it. But these top two are probably the least common that I see. Probably like 5% of when people come to me for the knees. Cool? So now we're going to move on to what I see most commonly. Most commonly, it is the tendons not being strong enough, or the muscles not being strong enough, or your entire complex of doing squats or lunges not being strong enough. I want you to have kind of like an aha moment here if you haven't had this at all. When we do planks, and when your wrists hurt because you do planks, or when you hold onto that bar and 10 to 15 seconds later, your grip and your hands hurt, that is not because there's something wrong with that area. It's because you're not strong enough to do that. Because how often do we take our body and ask our wrists to hold our entire body weight? Never, until you come into this room and Coach Damien says, everybody get into a plank and let's go as hard as you can for 30 push-ups, right? Of course, the tissue's going to tell you that it's not strong enough. So I don't want you to think that like I'm telling you that when you feel pain that you're wrong. I don't want you to feel like I'm telling you that you're not good enough. I'm telling you that this is something that you need to work on to get to where you need to be. I had an aha moment when I was in my college years, and I heard that grip strength is a direct correlator to how long we will live. So I got up on the bar, and I hung, and I was like, easy, what's happening? Oh my, like 30 to 45 seconds later, I fell, and I looked at the stats, and I was like, I have the grip strength of an old man. I'm not an old man, I'm strong. I have big muscles, I can do a lot of stuff, but truly, I have just show muscles. I just did the bench presses and the squats and that kind of stuff. It didn't have the actual strength. So if we can work on our grip strength, it's a key indicator of our overall strength. We will be able to get out of that pain because that muscle is now strong enough to be able to support the movement that we're asking it to do. So, tendons and straight is also, it's probably going to be, I would say 75% of the reasons why you feel pain in this room, because a lot of us have desk jobs. A lot of us don't ever ask our knees to bend past 90 degrees, which they should be able to bend into a full flex position, but we don't ask those muscles to do that. And if you don't use it, you will lose it. So the majority of what we go over today, after we go over all the education stuff, is going to be how to stretch the muscles that are holding us back, how to mobilize the joint in the range of motion that we need to mobilize it in, and then how to strengthen the muscles that support our precious knee joint, because it's not the knee, it's the stuff that surrounds the knee that's really the issue. Cool. Okay, so let's watch a video on osteoarthritis, because this is also about when I would say a lot of us are going to be experiencing some form of what we see here, especially at the ages that we are now. We're not all super young 20-year-olds, and we don't have to worry about that. As we go, we're going to be experiencing breakdown and degradation. I'm going to be pretty honest with you guys. When I was younger, I worked out too hard. I didn't eat enough. I had an issue fueling, not because I probably had a little bit of a eating disorder, but not in the sense like I'm not a foodie. I love exercising. I want to spend time out moving and doing work, so I just did not nourish myself enough for all the breakdown that I was doing to my body. And when you just keep breaking yourself down and you don't give yourself the building blocks in order to get better, all you're doing is breaking yourself down. So that's probably why I have a little bit of this. That's probably why some of us have a little bit of this. The foods that we eat are inflammatory. The foods that we avoid putting into our diet that might help us, we don't have a lot of those in our diet. So we will be going over nutrition and supplements today as well. But let's watch this osteoarthritis. This is another one of the common things that I see. I would say this is a very high percentage along with strength and tendon issues.
Osteoarthritis is a form of arthritis and affects millions of individuals. It is classified as mild, moderate to severe. It affects many parts of the body, including the knee. The knee joint is made up of the femur, tibia, patella, along with the synovial membrane, which contains synovial fluid. Synovial fluid acts as a lubricant in the knee joint. The end of the femur is covered in articular cartilage, which moves against the articular cartilage of the tibia. In a healthy knee, the articular cartilage is smooth, without fissuring, and the bone is smooth. The synovial fluid is viscous, aiding in lubrication. The knee can move through its range of motion without pain. Over time, osteoarthritis affects the bone, cartilage, and synovial fluid of the knee. With mild knee osteoarthritis, you will begin to have discomfort in the knee joint. Though the joint space appears normal, the cartilage matrix has begun to break down from a combination of wear and tear and increased production of degrading enzymes. In addition, bone spurs, known as osteophytes, may begin to develop on the edge of the joint. These small, smooth, dense growths of bone are part of the body's natural response to the loss of cartilage. Progression of the disease may be slowed at this stage by increased exercise and weight loss. With moderate knee OA, changes in the joint are much more evident. The cartilage surface between the bones has begun to erode, narrowing the gap between the femur and the tibia. Hyaluronic acid, which helps synovial fluid lubricate the joint, is now becoming less viscous, elastic, and concentrated. Osteoarthritis often affects the subchondral bone, located just underneath the cartilage. Subchondral bone provides hydration and oxygen to the cartilage. As subchondral bone flattens and tries to repair itself, cytokines and proteins are released into the synovial fluid. Osteophytes may increase in number and size, making the bone rougher. All these factors combine to make joint pain more severe and long-lasting, both with movement and at rest. Weight loss and exercise, pain relievers, HA, or steroid injections are commonly prescribed treatments. With severe OA, conditions worsen dramatically. The joint space has become far narrower, causing more rapid and severe destruction of the cartilage. The knee becomes inflamed and sore. Synovial fluid is decreased, increasing friction and pain during movement. Within the synovial membrane, destructive proteins are produced which further degrade cartilage and soft tissue around the knee. Osteophytes continue to develop. Bone moves against bone, not cartilage. mobility, activities of daily living, and quality of life are severely impacted.
That's nasty.
Treatment for severe OA is typically surgery by receiving a partial or total knee replacement.
Okay, so we are all somewhere on that path to that, right? We're all at some point on one of those things, and that should be a sign that, okay, things can be happening inside that knee that are definitely hindering the process of being smooth and feeling good. But what I want you to notice is that when they said all three of those treatments, every single one of those treatments, exercise was one of the ways that you get out of, that you can alleviate some of that pain. And the reason that those little tiny spikes start to accumulate is because what happens is we start to feel that pain in our knees, and we're like, okay, pain is bad, I want to stay away from that. So I stop bending my knees and I don't go any past this. And now those bones start to grow. And if those bones don't have anything to grow into, they just keep growing. So when I stop moving my knees at that full range of motion, I'm letting those bones grow, and I'm pretty much locking myself in place. And this was like a huge aha moment to me, like 10 years ago, when I thought about how the body evolves. And when I looked at a 90-year-old, I was training a 92-year-old. His name was Doc, one of my favorite clients that I've ever had. And he had rounded shoulders, and his feet, he walked like this, and he couldn't raise his arms up above his head, and his pinky toe and his middle toe were growing underneath his foot, like that. And I said, how does the human body mold and morph into that shape? Like, there's nothing in life that we want to do to get to that, right? So I thought about it, and I'm like, over time, you have your bones, your muscles, but you also have this tissue that's around the muscles called your fascia. And your fascia actually starts to glue itself together, and it starts to mold into the shape that you are the most. So when you watch people sitting at a desk, you're watching them, and their shoulders are rolled forward, so the back muscles are lengthened, and they start to weaken. Because the way that you use muscles is you squeeze and you release, and you squeeze and release, and we lose the ability to squeeze and release. So you start to mold yourself. Your chest muscles get tight and short, and so you're here. And then your feet, you stop asking them to jump, and you stop asking those feet to dorsiflex, which is point the toe, and plantar flex, so you end up walking like this. This is what you mold yourself into. If that's the case, if we know that the body molds itself and it sticks itself into a shape, then when you ask your knees to not bend to a certain degree, and this is all you do, it's going to mold and strengthen all of the things in this range of motion. But it's not going to strengthen anything in this range of motion. So when I tell people, there's different levels to every single exercise. I could put 1,000 pounds on, well, I couldn't, but someone could put 1,000 pounds on their back and do a squat. You could also do the same thing with 100 pounds. You could do the same thing by grabbing this TRX and assisting with the TRX and doing it with negative 100 pounds. All of those are the same movement, but they're at a certain level. So when I come in here and I tell you, like, when you feel pain, it's your body telling you that you're not strong enough to do that, your joints aren't strong enough, your tendons aren't strong enough, and your muscles aren't strong enough, so we have to earn our way to get there. So let's regress back to what feels okay and what I'm allowed to do, and let's go ahead and progress from there. And we know that when you stress a muscle, you create micro tears. Those micro tears, your body sends these things called fibroblasts and myoblasts to that muscle to rebuild it stronger and more resilient, so that same amount of damage that you just put on it doesn't create damage. It wants to protect itself for survival, and it's called the repeated bout effect. If you stress a muscle and you put this, let's say you put 5 pounds of force on a muscle, it's going to repair from that. And then you will not see the same amount of damage if you keep lifting with 5 pounds. So what do? You have to lift with 7 pounds and 10 pounds and 15 pounds. But the point is you have to let the body get stressed and then recover from it. And before it goes back to baseline and you just go back to the way you were, you want to stress it again. It's the idea of what's called super compensation. It's one of my favorite things. I'll touch on that in just a second. Let's move on to causes of pain. And this is where people get a little sensitive, and this is where I have a really hard time talking about it, because I don't know what your pain feels like, you don't know what my pain feels like. We're all different when it comes to pain. But let's see, how does your brain respond to pain? And then maybe we can talk a little bit about like what's going on when you feel pain inside your body. So what does your brain do when it responds to pain?
10 minutes to solve this puzzle. How long would it take if you received constant electric shocks to your hands? Longer, right? Because the pain would distract you from the task. Well, maybe not. It depends on how you handle pain. Some people are distracted by pain. It takes them longer to complete a task, and they do it less well. Other people use tasks to distract themselves from pain, and those people actually do the task faster and better when they're in pain than when they're not. Some people can just send their mind wandering to distract themselves from pain. How can different people be subjected to the exact same painful stimulus and yet experience the pain so differently? And why does this matter? First of all, what is pain? Pain is an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage.
And actual or potential damage. Your body's trying to protect you from actual or potential damage.
Pain is something we experience, so it's best measured by what you say it is. Pain has an intensity. You can describe it on a scale from 0, no pain, to 10, the most pain imaginable. But pain also has a character, like sharp, dull, burning, or aching. What exactly creates these perceptions of pain? Well, when you get hurt, special tissue damage sensing nerve cells, called nociceptors, fire, and send signals to the spinal cord and then up to the brain. Processing work gets done by cells called neurons and glia. This is your gray matter. And brain superhighways carry information as electrical impulses from one area to another. This is your white matter. The superhighway that carries pain information from the spinal cord to the brain is our sensing pathway that ends in the cortex, the part of the brain that decides what to do with the pain signal. Another system of interconnected brain cells called the salience network decides what to pay attention to. Since pain can have serious consequences, the pain signal immediately activates the salience network. Now you're paying attention. The brain also responds to the pain and has to cope with these pain signals. So motor pathways are activated to take your hand off a hot stove, for example. But modulation networks are also activated that deliver endorphins and enkephalins, chemicals released when you're in pain or during extreme exercise, creating the runner's high. These chemical systems help regulate and reduce pain. All these networks and pathways work together to create your pain experience, to prevent further tissue damage, and help you to cope with pain. This system is similar for everyone, but the sensitivity and efficacy of these brain circuits determines how much you feel and cope with pain. This is why some people have greater pain than others, and why some develop chronic pain that does not respond to treatment, while others respond well. Variability in pain sensitivities is not so different than all kinds of variability in responses to other stimuli. Like how some people love roller coasters, but other people suffer from terrible motion sickness. Why does it matter that there is variability in our pain brain circuits? Well, there are many treatments for pain, targeting different systems. For mild pain, non-prescription medications can act on cells where the pain signals start. Other stronger pain medicines and anesthetics work by reducing the activity in pain sensing circuits, or boosting our coping system, or endorphins. Some people can cope with pain using methods that involve distraction, relaxation, meditation, yoga, or strategies that can be taught like cognitive behavioral therapy. For some people who suffer from severe chronic pain, that is, pain that doesn't go away months after their injury should have healed, none of the regular treatments work. Traditionally, medical science has been about testing treatments on large groups to determine what would help a majority of patients. But this has usually left out some who didn't benefit from the treatment or experienced side effects. Now, new treatments that directly stimulate or block certain pain-sensing, attention, or modulation networks are being developed, along with ways to tailor them to individual patients, using tools like magnetic resonance imaging to map brain pathways. Figuring out how your brain responds to pain is the key to finding the best treatment for you. That's true personalized medicine.
So, as you can see, it's super complex. And we still don't know all the things that we need to know about pain. Doctors, and we have doctors in this room, nurses, we are all trying to do the best for that person in front of us that is telling us that they're in pain. But there are so many things that could be going on when you feel pain. Pain is your body is sensing something that's happening. It's sending a signal up to your brain, and your brain is interpreting what's happening, and then your brain is making that decision for you, and then putting it out to the body as to how you respond. Am I going to respond as in, I'm going to pull back from whatever I'm touching? Am I going to respond by, I'm not going to go into that position with my body? But who knows all the things that could be going on in that entire pathway that might not be 100% correct. It might be just how the interpretation is happening, right? So that's where I feel like I'm going to talk about something that I probably don't have very much experience in, and I probably don't have the right to talk about it, but if you think about it, everything's on a continuum. You have good and you have evil, you have happy and you have sad. What's the opposite of pain? Pleasure. Pleasure. And I feel like recently, in the past 20, 30 years, we are all trying to shift as much as we can towards the pleasure side, and we're trying to completely avoid the pain side. We're trying to numb ourselves with alcohol and movies, and we're trying to, there's pornography, all that kind of stuff that like we're all, it's like the scales are not even close to being even. Pain is a good thing sometimes, and sometimes we need to lean into pain because exercise does not feel great sometimes. It's painful, but that pain creates growth. Discomfort, you hear me say it all the time, where there is challenge, there is change. When you're uncomfortable, there's growth. So I kind of want us to find that line, and I hate saying this in this way because it's like, I understand you're in pain, I understand I am in pain, but the way that I got out of pain was I forced myself. If you've ever had a broken arm and you are in a cast for a month or so and you take it off, like actually going through that process of getting it back to that full range, it sucks. It's painful, but you have to do it. You have to get yourself to be able to get that into that range of motion. You have to tell those muscles and strengthen those muscles to do it. Otherwise, you'll never do it, and you're slowly going to get into that degradation zone of being an early MSM for a reason. Swallow, devil's claw, and MSM. So those are 3 things that you could look at. If you have a joint supplement that you're taking, maybe look to see if those have it. But definitely, you're going to want these 3: chondroitin and glucosamine. Chondroitin, you want to take this 2 times a day, spread out morning and night. And same thing with glucosamine. These you want to take 400 to 800 milligrams, and I will send this in an email, 400 to 800 milligrams, and you want to take it twice a day. These have been proven to be more beneficial if you take them with MSM. And I don't know how to say MSM, so I'm not going to say it, but if you look, they actually sell supplements like this on Amazon. I buy the 3 ingredients separately, and I make them myself. So I do like a little bit of a chemistry thing. So chondroitin, glucosamine, and MSM twice a day, that amount, 400 to 800 milligrams in the morning and night. Fish oil, there's some, we already talked about that. Turmeric, you guys know turmeric, anti-inflammatory. Now, the ingredient in turmeric that actually gives you the anti-inflammatory process benefits is called curcumin. Now, curcumin only makes up 3% of turmeric. So, it almost would behoove you to buy a curcumin supplement while eating turmeric with your food. I bought curcumin a couple of years ago, and it actually made me feel really bad. I got really hot, and so I don't know what it was, but if it doesn't work for you, don't include it. But if you feel the progress, then it might be something that you want. And then this is going to be my secret ingredient. So if you've ever seen me in here, has anyone seen me take Jello shots in here? You see me take Jello? You see me. So those aren't actually alcohol. They're not Jello alcohol shots. What they are is I make, if you have 0 sugar Jello, that's actually gelatin. That's protein. That's collagen. So that's actual stuff that can help you with your joints. It used to be like a childhood snack for us, but you can actually take gelatin, put a little bit of vitamin C with it, eat it at the right time, and your joints and your tendons mostly are going to get strengthened from that supplement. So if you eat, if you want to make little Jello shots like I do, you go into my kitchen and in my fridge, and I will have hundreds of Jello shots in my fridge, which is really weird. Jamie lets me have a whole top shelf. But I put, the ingredient should be 15 grams of gelatin with 50 milligrams of vitamin C 1 hour prior to your ligament training. There's differences between muscle training and ligament training that we're going to go over here. Ligament training should be only 5 to 6 minutes at a time. Super, super short. And you could do 2 a day, but they have to be separated by about 6 hours so you don't overstress the tendon. The tendons are not super pliable. They're there for support, and they're there to pull on the bone once the muscle pulls on the tendon to get that joint to move. So you have to let them recover. They don't have as good a blood flow. It takes a lot of recovery. Whereas muscles, you can work them for 30 to 60 minutes at a time, and you can really work those maybe once a day, once every other day, just depending on your intensity level. So I will send this to you guys in an email. Everyone that showed up today, I will send an email, and I will have all these ingredients in there. Just know that those are the things that make up the building blocks of what we're about to stress and try to tell the body to rebuild. One more video, and then we'll get going. Are you guys bored yet? This is good? Okay. So one more video, and I want to talk about how, we talk about this in class all the time, how the knee is the middleman, and what usually is occurring is from above or below at the ankle or the hip. So these are why your knee pain might not be a knee problem.
Exercise program, and it's for you whether you've got a diagnosed condition like a meniscus tear, ACL or ligament tear, quad or patellar tendonitis, maybe a jumper's knee, patellar tract disorder, osteoarthritis, condylation patella, or you just got general stiff, achy, painful knees. Now, many people find us because they failed with a traditional approach, and that often includes visiting their local physio or chiro clinic. And the reason why we find that people often fail is that the knee, and too much focus is on the knee, and the knee is often, we talk about this a lot, Dr. B and I, the knee is often the victim of problems above or below. So feet and ankles or hips. This is really addressed in the knee pain solution. And let me just give you some examples, walk you through a bunch of random examples of how the knee breaks down, but it's due to a problem of the ankles and feet or the hips. Now, just to understand how much the knee has to do on a daily basis, every step we take results in forces that need to be absorbed by the lower body. Now, if the ankles and feet aren't absorbing forces, then those forces go to the knee. If the hips aren't absorbing forces, then the forces go to the knee. So that's why we say the knee is often the victim of problems above or below where it's at. Now here's an example. Active arch. The muscles in the bottom of the feet is called the intrinsic muscles. There's 4 layers of them, a lot of them. They are designed to create and support an arch on the bottom foot. You know that. If that arch and those muscles aren't working, then the forces that would be absorbed every step right at the foot have to travel up to the knee to be absorbed. And this is just over time. More forces that go through that joint result in wear and tear, and sooner or later, the tissues break down. It could be meniscus, it could be ACL, it could be tendons, who knows what it's going to be, but the more wear and tear you put on that, the quicker it's going to wear out, just like the more miles you put on your car, the quicker the tires are going to wear out. If you lack ankle dorsiflexion, so that's
okay, so let's talk about the foot really quick. This is something that I'm super passionate about, and some of you guys already know that I tell you about the cushions on your feet and then how that responds to the type of training you're doing. And we also have a bunch of our members that have kind of adopted the Vivo Life. Who's got the Vivos on right here? Vivos, I know Jen does. Okay, so the Vivo Life, right? You got Vivos, Jen? Yeah, okay, cool. So, your foot. A lot of people tell me that their foot has a flat arch, and people swear by the insoles, the inserts, and I totally understand why you swear by the insoles, but we have to understand that insoles are the same exact thing as if I were to wear a back brace for my back. It's something that's there to help me and support me, and it's something that's there for me to use as a crutch to get where I want to be, rather than training the actual structure of my body to do what it was meant to do. What was the shoe designed for? The shoe was designed to protect the foot. So like back in the caveman days or whatever, they had probably like bark on the bottom of your foot straps. Then it evolved into something that was more, I have a whole podcast on this that's 90 minutes of how the shoe evolved if you guys want to listen to it, but it became something as a status symbol. So royalty would wear it, and it became this thing where you would wear like the biggest, tallest shoes would make you the biggest status. It would make you taller, you could see it underneath robes, and so then peasants started to adopt what the royalty was doing because, yeah, you want to do what the cool kids are doing, right? And so we have these shoes that evolved from something that was supposed to be there as a protection, but then it became more of a status and it became more of a stylistic type of thing. And what's the number one famous shoe? The red bottom shoe, does anyone know? Louis Vuitton, yeah, so that has a huge impact on the way that our shoes evolved. And another one was the swoosh, the Nike swoosh. Right? So Phil Knight, he invented this shoe that helped runners, and these runners, they had perfect form, and they were just looking for a little more spring in their step, and when they started doing really well, all the people that saw them doing well wanted those shoes, but they don't have the correct type of mechanics. So when we run, our foot is supposed to be a shock absorber. It's supposed to absorb the shock, and that shock is getting absorbed in all of those tiny bones, those tiny ligaments and joints so that it doesn't go up the chain. But what do most of us do? We're not runners, unless some of you are in here are runners. We haven't been trained to run. So when we run and we land like that. This is a heel strike. All of that force goes up into our joints, and this is the first line of defense right here in my knee. So when I land, if you were wearing barefoot shoes, if you were barefoot outside and you ran like that, no way. You would stop running right away. So what did we do? We started making shoes that have the cushion. And yes, oh my gosh, this makes me feel so much better, but it's not fixing the issue, right? It's helping me run, which is great. So if you're someone that has these huge cushions on you, those are great for running. If you don't have great running mechanics and you want to go outside and you want to run, you're not going to hurt yourself because you have all that cushion. But what is it doing actually? Imagine your hands. If you put on oven mitts, and you just lived your life all day with oven mitts on, those muscles of your hands would start to atrophy. They would start losing their dexterity, and then you would not be able to have the ability to move your fingers the way you do. What's really weird is if you have someone that's strong with their feet, they can move their toes individually. I've talked to almost everybody, and there's not one person that I can see in here that would probably be able to move their toes individually. If you can, you're amazing. We have two different aspects of the foot. The foot can become a spring, and if you evert, this is called evert your foot becomes stable, still. It becomes, have you ever seen those amputees that have the little springs that run and they have like the springs on it? Your foot becomes that. They got the design from that because your foot can do that. But then if you take your foot and you pronate it, it becomes like the primates that we are, and it becomes a hand that can grip. So you have the ability to spring, and you have the ability to open up and become more dexterous, but we don't have that ability to pretty much do any of that because we put our feet in these shoe casts. So my thing is if you have a problem with your foot, if your foot is weak, everything from there stems from the ground up. So if your feet are weak, your shoes are masking what's happening down below. So if I could ask you to try to invest in something, it would be a minimal foot shoe with a wide toe box. And the Vivos that I wear and I've worn for years and years and years have that exact thing. Now you have to be careful because if my hands were in oven mitts for years and years and years and I take them out of oven mitts and then I just try to start doing all this stuff, I'm going to hurt my hands and pretty much everything up the chain. The same thing happens with your feet. If you go right to barefoot shoes and you go and you train and you squat and you run, your muscles in your joints are not going to be used to that and you're going to hurt yourself probably right away. So maybe you buy some shoes that are a little more flat-soled, and if you need some ideas, I have a couple ideas. You can email me from the email response that I give you. And wear it for half of the workout. Put your normal shoes on and wear it for the next half. Or just one time a week and then slowly build your way up. But your feet are the most important thing, in my opinion, when it comes to getting out of knee pain. If we can strengthen the foot arches with the muscles underneath your foot, if we can strengthen the ankle bones, and if we can get the ankle to move in the full, I'm still very limited with my ankle dorsiflexion, which is the bend of my ankle forward. If you can work on that, we will get out of knee pain because now your knee is under less stress. Your joints and your muscles are doing what they're supposed to do to absorb the shock and the movement, and the knee will be under less stress. So we're going to do some exercises with the foot and the ankle and the calf muscles to be able to stretch those. So that's the foot.
If you're stuck there, that causes more force to go through the quads, the quadriceps tendon, and the patellar tendon, and the patella. So those structures are going to get more wear and tear, more forces, and they'll wear out quicker than if more force was absorbed because you have proper ankle dorsiflexion. Tibial rotation. So the tibia rotates, not a ton, but it does. If you lack tibial rotation, then those forces are going to grind through the meniscus and the cartilage in the knee joint. And it's going to wear out quicker because it's just dealing with more force over time. Now let's move up to hip rotation. Again, just like tibial rotation. If you lack hip rotation when you're moving around, that rotation is going to go through the knee, and the knee is not designed for rotational forces. So that's more stress going through those passive tissues like the meniscus and the cartilage.
Your hip is a ball and socket joint, right? So your hip can move in all of these ranges of motion, where your knee is a hinge joint. It can only move here. When your hip doesn't have the ability to do this, the knee is going to do this, which it's not supposed to do. That train track, it will get off track. You will be grinding away at things that shouldn't be grinding. So hip rotation and hip mobility is super important. And this next one, I never even thought about, but it's something that I think affects a lot of us.
Tear and degeneration. Psoas function, so the hip flexor. If the psoas isn't working, you still need to flex your hip. Other muscles can compensate. That could be the rectus femoris is another hip flexor. If that one is compensating, then it's pulling on the quadriceps tendon, on the patella, on the patellar tendon, and you're going to have more stress go through the anterior part of the knee, resulting in it wearing down quicker. Or let's say,
so if you've ever came to me and you told me that your knee hurts when you lunge, and I tell you to stretch all of this because of that, this is the reason why. What is the number one position that we're in all day long? This position, right here. Our hips are at 90 degrees, our knees are at 90 degrees. We're right here. Couch, eating our Cheerios, driving, we're right here. What happens to this muscle that is connected to my thigh bone and to my torso? Shorten, weaken, short, weak, that right there. As soon as I ask my body to do this, Now I'm pulling on this, and what this weak tendon, that we very ever forced to go through is now pulling all of that up. Of course our knee's gonna hurt. When we go into this position, I tell you perfect posture, I tell you straight up and down, and you're like, you're literally like ripping those muscles, not like, that way, but you're stretching those muscles to a point where they never felt that before. So if you feel pain in your back knee when you lunge, that's all of this right here, pulling on those tendons and that patella. So that's something, I bet you never thought about when you felt pain in any of this stuff, right? So it's all connected. A little bit more.
Tensor fasciae lata that's compensating for the lack of hip flexion from the tensor fasciae lata that's often quicker. Or let's say it's the TFL, tensor fasciae lata, that's compensating for the lack of hip flexion from the psoas. If it's the TFL that's compensating, it's working more, it's going to cause more stress on this lateral aspect through the IT band, because the TFL runs into the IT band, which inserts into the lateral aspect of the knee. So you could have patellar crack issues, IT band syndrome, pain down here at the knee, just a general tight IT band. You could have pain up in the hip as well. It's not just all going down through the knee. Other issues that show that the knee is the victim of dysfunction up above. And the last one I'll go through is hamstring function. This is a really important one, especially for athletes who are sprinting, who are running, playing cutting and pivoting sports. The hamstrings, they run back here from the hip, insert down here. And if you just imagine this muscle contracting, it's going to pull this whole bone this way. What's one of the functions of the ACL? Is to prevent the bone, the tibia, from going this way, from sliding that way. And soccer and other sports, jumping, volleyball, any sport where you're running and cutting and pivoting, ACL injuries can be catastrophic. It can put you out for over a year. So the hamstrings, if they're not functioning well, then more stress has to go on the ACL to create that knee stability to prevent this tibia from sliding forwards. And over time, just little wear and tear is going to go on that ACL.
Okay, so you get it. So you kind of get it. There's so many aspects to why you could be feeling pain in your knee, and that TFL was like such a good example. Like if you feel pain way down here in the bottom of your knee, you have a strip of tendon called your IT, your iliotibial band, that attaches right there, and it's because this tight muscle, it's a very small muscle, it's only about that big, pulls on this IT band, and you feel it here. But the issue's here, like how can the average person ever possibly understand that or know that? So when you think pain, sometimes, most of the time, the pain is not coming from where you feel the pain. It's actually a source above or below. So hopefully that's kind of helps you guys with that. Awesome. Are you ready to do some exercises? Okay, so we're going to go through some exercises. You can video me, you can do them with me, you can write them down in notes. We're going to go over these, and then I'll send an email, and you're going to be looking through these items. So if there's one that really feels good, one that you feel like is actually going to be doing work for you, write down the name, because there's hundreds of different names for the same exercise in fitness. That's one of the funny things. One of the jokes is that you can call an exercise many different things. I guess it's not funny when I say it like that. But just make sure that you guys take notes and take videos, and make sure that when you get this email, you'll be able to decipher what I'm trying to tell you when it comes to the list of stuff. So let's go ahead. We're not going to have enough, but everyone grab a foam roller and come out to the front of your bench. And I want to go over some stuff that talks about how the muscles work when it comes to foam rolling. We've done a lot of foam rolling before. So foam rolling is, there might not be enough for everyone, which is totally fine. Just kind of like, those of you that don't have one, just kind of watch. The muscle is controlled by the brain, right? The brain is going to send a signal to the muscle to fire, and then the brain is going to release that signal to relax. Like, a muscle doesn't lengthen, it lets go, right? It doesn't lengthen, it lets go. So when you send a signal from the brain to the muscle, the contraction fires, and the muscle gets shorter. And then as that signal releases, the muscle goes back to that position and releases. So what we're going to try to do with foam rolling is we're going to try to put some stimulus into the area, make it so that it's a little uncomfortable, and then when you release the pressure from the muscle, that's when the muscle lets go a little bit. So when you do your stretches, when you do your foam rolling, the goal is to tell the muscle to relax on one side of the body so that it can contract on another side of the body more optimally, and it doesn't have that effect where it's pulling in the ways that it it's pulling in a way that prevents that joint to do what it is supposed to do. I hope that makes sense. So we're going to start it off by foam rolling your quad and then we'll do some squeezes. So you're coming down into a position on the foam roller and you're going to roll. So go ahead and do this with me if you have a foam roller and go onto your quad. Your quad is called a quad because there's 4 muscles. So you want to try to hit each muscle. You have the inside, you have the outside, you have 2 muscles on top of each other on the front side. So go ahead, do a couple of rolls, and when you foam roll, you want to feel for tender, sensitive areas. And those tender, sensitive areas are usually a cluster of muscles that are staying contracted. They call it a knot. You might have heard of muscle knot. Once you find that area, your breath will tell you that muscle to let go. So once you find a tender spot, and you'll know when you find it, stop on it, apply more pressure, take a big breath in, and try to imagine that muscle filling with air. And then as you exhale, imagine you're just trying to let everything go. And you're just trying to melt and relax and release over it. It usually takes me 3 to 6 breaths to feel any kind of release, because I'm a wound up, tight kind of guy. It's the exhale, long, extended, and targeted, I would say. That's the focus that is going to tell that muscle to let go. If you feel no tender, sensitive areas, your muscle is good to go. You do not have to be there. You're wasting your time if you're there. Now, go to the outside. There's an IT band, and you want to go just to the front of the IT band. If you roll the IT band is essentially made up of just sensing neurons. It's just neurons that are actually very sensitive to touch. So really you're just kind of exciting those neurons in a way that you don't need to. So go right into the front of it and try to find an area. And then the last area you want to find is your TFL. And your TFL is this muscle right here. If you kind of like poke at it on your hip, you'll feel it. It's a small band of muscle that attaches to your IT band, and that muscle, when tight, it pulls your IT band, and you're going to feel that tension down here on the side of your knee. So if you're someone that has pain in the side of your knee, you might want to focus right up here. It's on the front of your hip, pinning it down and breathing it away. And sometimes if it doesn't go away, if you take your object and you are on top of it, you're pinning that muscle down, and then you move it. And then you try to move the muscle. Once you're moving it, you can cross roll, you can forward roll, or you can pin and move. But your goal is to put a little stimulus on it that hurts, and then breathe it away, and then release, and hopefully that muscle is now relaxed in a way that it can tell you to go. So what we want to do is we want to, when you come in, rolling your quads, both sides, rolling your TFLs, are going to give you the release on your quads that doesn't pull on the patella. That's what you should be doing while you're waiting. You shouldn't be waiting for me to start the session. Just standing here, grab a foam roller, get in here, roll your quads. Next, oh, thank you, sir. Next, take that foam roller and sit on it like this. And we're going to do some quad firing exercises. You're going to come up and you're going to extend the leg and try to lift your heel as high and forward as you can. And you want to fire up that quad as much as you can. You're going to hold it for 5 seconds. So you're going to go up and squeeze. 5, 4, harder, 3, 2, release. Up and hold, squeeze. So what you're doing now is you're telling the mind to connect to the muscle to be able to know when to fire this muscle maximally and then to relax and let it go. You're literally just creating mind-to-muscle connection here, because a lot of times we're disconnected from our body. When we think we have a back pain, it could actually be your organs, it could be your ligaments, it could be just your stress level. There's so many things that it could be, but you feel back pain. It's not always the back muscles. So we're trying to create a connection, mind-to-muscle connection. Make sure you do both legs. And then you want to spend a little bit more time on the targeted leg that does bother you the most. For me, my left knee bothers me the most because of my injury, but I do feel pain in both of my knees. And a lot of times, what's really funny is if you have osteoarthritis, some people feel the pain from that diagnosis. Other people have no sensation at all with the same kind of damage. The same thing happens to bulging discs, which is another very sensitive topic. If we all got a scan right now, we would all have some form of bulging discs. Now, when a doctor tells us that we have a bulging disc issue and we feel pain, That then sends the signal like, oh man, I really am broken. I really should be careful. And the more careful I am, the less that I move. The less that I move, the more I go into that state of being glued together. So I'm not a doctor, but if someone tells me that I have a disc issue, I'm gonna be like, okay, cool, let me move as far as I can move and let me hold on to the range of motion I have and try to earn more range of motion every day. That's what I try to do every night when I do mobility. I'm trying to get into a position that my body doesn't want to get into very well. And 4 months from now, that position becomes normal to me. I've earned my way to get into it. Okay, I'm turning a little preachy, I apologize. Foam roll the hamstring. So the hamstring on here, angle the toe inside, angle the toe outside. You usually won't feel too much on the main part of the hamstring. I feel mine more on the inside. Your hamstring is made up of three muscles. You have the one in the middle, the one on the inside, and the one on the outside. The one on the inside is your adductor. If you did the thriller lunges that we did this week, or if you did the adductor lunges from the TRX, that's that muscle here, and it supports the knee down here. And when this muscle's tight, it's going to do the same thing, pull that knee off track. And so this muscle, if we can release it, you can do a couple different ways. You can do, you could also do it this way, where you roll sideways. It looks a little awkward. Or you can just kind of angle yourself in this way and pin it down, take a couple breaths. And if you don't feel anything, maybe pin and move, or maybe cross roll this way. And this is all just activating, this is all just putting mind to muscle into the connection. We'll pass. I'm not going to do this with everyone because everyone doesn't have a band. But if you guys have little bands, these are like $1 on Amazon. You could buy these, and we want to strengthen the glutes here. When we sit a lot, these glutes, they turn off, they weaken, we have a hard time firing these glutes. These glutes right here, if they're weak and the adductors are tight, what's that going to do to our knees, right? If these muscles are weak and loose, and these muscles are tight, that's going to turn us into a knock-kneed person. And this right here, that's one of the #1 reasons why people feel pain when they squat. And it's because that track, this is obviously way over-exaggerated, but even like this much, you will feel pain in the knees because you squat, and now you're pushing that patella out of its groove. You're not going to be able to get very far. So if I can strengthen the glutes, which I always tell people, twist the floor away from you, knees over pinky toes, you will feel that track now, but you might feel weakness here, which will cause pain because you're saying, okay, I want to squat, but I'm stretching a muscle that doesn't often get stretched, and I'm asking it to hold up my entire body weight. I will feel pain somewhere. And where is it usually I feel pain? Somewhere here, because this is going to be the weak link for most movements like that. So if we can strengthen the glutes, band never goes on the joint. It either goes below or above. And to make it harder, it's going to go further away from the origin is what it's called. This is the origin, and this is where the distal part is. The further away from the origin, the more challenging it is. So if I want to make it easier, my band goes up top. If I want to make it harder, band goes below. Banded bridge openers. Feet hip width apart, push to the floor, squeeze, open the knees to fire up the glute med, bring it back to center, and lower. When most people do glute bridges, if you watch my lower back is arched. And then I go into my bridge, but what happens? When this pelvis is tucked, this glute is not being maximally stretched. If I can push my lower back down into the ground, tilt my pelvis forward, which I always say try to tuck your pelvis towards your chin, and then I go into my bridge, maximum contraction. Oh, I didn't hear a pop in here. A maximum contraction. So this ribs flare, no go. This ribs tucked, pelvic tucked, big time muscle contraction. So you can see how when we do our exercises in class, if we just do like I'm doing my bridges, right? No, like we have to concentrate a little bit more. We have to push the lower back down, and you could probably do this without the band if you want to. Try to do this with me right here if you have a spot. Go ahead and take your lower back and push it down to the ground. Once your lower back is down into the ground, try to hold that position from your pelvis to your ribs, and then push through your heels and lift your glutes. You might feel a different sensation than you've ever felt when doing glute bridges. So pin, tuck, hold, exhale, push. You might not go as high as you normally do, but the squeeze on the backside, you will feel much better. And the opening up of the legs at the top is going to be a firing for the outside of the hips. The glute medius is what it's called. Cool. Okay, so after that, you might also want to strengthen the inside. So you can do the same thing by pushing into an object and then hip bridging. So not only am I strengthening these, but I'm strengthening these. The goal is to be stretchy, mobile enough to get into a position, and then strengthen all the muscles. There's no, how do I want to say this? There's no wrong as to which muscles to strengthen. You want to strengthen all of them, but you are normally more imbalanced on the outside. The outside is usually weaker, the inside is usually stronger. So we want to find that balance. So yes, the banded outs are probably more important for most people, but we do want to be able to strengthen by squeezing together as well for the inside muscles. The standing hip airplane. This is one of the greatest hip strengtheners that you can do. We're going to need to go over to your TRX bay, or you can hold on to your bike, or you can hold on to the rower. Watch me real quick. You're going to have just 2 fingers on a support. You're going to go into a single leg RDL. This right here, I'm now stabilizing on this hip. So this week we did so many freaking single leg RDL and we drives. It was a lot. So I want to come into this position. I want to check out my back foot. My back foot is important because if I'm lazy with my back foot, I have a really hard time controlling what my hip's doing. I want to make sure that I am just rotating from this position here by taking my back foot and I'm going to point my toe to the right. And then I'm going to come back down, and I'm going to let that hip drop a little bit past parallel, just so I can get the biggest stretch that I possibly can. Then I'm going to open up and squeeze, and then I'm going to come back. If you can do this every day, 20 times per leg, 2 or 3 times a day, you will feel differences in every lower body exercise you do. Go ahead and give that a shot. Find a position, do 10 reps on per leg. So you're going single leg RDL, open up, squeeze, hold it there for a second, and then come back. Now, when your body is weak in a muscle, it's going to try to rush through it. It's going to try to compensate. So your goal is to own every inch. Wherever you feel like you're trying to rush through, that is the position where you want to spend the majority of your time. Now you want to go, if you're having a hard time balancing, use both arms. If you're having a hard time balancing, you can grab one of those poles and you can assist. You can grab a broomstick or something that holds you up, a countertop. You can literally do this on your counter while you're waiting for your coffee to brew. Yeah. So flex your toe towards your shin and then just turn that toe to the side. You should have, yeah, nice. There you go. Good. And the straighter you can get that bottom leg, the more you're going to ask the hip to do. Ooh, yeah. Okay, make sure you're even. I'll give you a little more time. Those are the priming exercises. Next, we're going to go over one of the safest ways to strengthen your tendons. This is if you have, like if you came in here today saying that I can't do anything with my knees, this is, I don't want to do anything. These are the exercises that you want to start with. The ones that I'm about to show you. This is going to be called an isometric contraction. You have concentric when you lift something, you have eccentric when you lower something, and then you have isometric when you hold something. So if I were to push into this wall right here, I'm doing an isometric contraction of a push. And your brain, when I lift this foam roller, my brain uses only the minimum amount of muscle fibers in order to lift this. If this was 100 pounds, I would have to use more muscle fibers and probably more here to get that weight up, right? So your body is so lazy, but it's like an evolutionary thing. It's supposed to be lazy. We want to train the ability to have control over how much power we can generate. And that's what we're going to do with the tendons here. So everybody that's on the floor, we're going to do a Spanish squat. Everybody that's not on the floor, you guys can find a wall or you guys can find an isometric pole. So here's the Spanish squat, and there's a lot of different variations. These bands are $25 on Amazon, and you get a pack of 6 of them. Just saying, pretty great for pull-ups as well. If you have a pull-up bar, these are a pretty good investment. So this is called a Spanish squat. What it does is it's now pulling my lower leg forward, and it's holding that knee in place. So if you feel pain in your knees when you squat, you might want to try this and see if this helps. So when I sink into my squat, I couldn't do this without the band, right? I would fall backwards. So this right here is putting a full maximal load on the front of my thighs, but mostly it's helping my knee stabilize at that patella tendon. So I'm going to hold this, and our goal is to work our way up to 2 to 3 sets of 45 seconds. What? Do you guys want to try it? Okay, pick a band. The bigger ones are a little more support. If you have the little ones, I put 2 bands at your station, and the 2 bands, you might want to use both of them if you're a bigger person. If you don't want to use the bands, you can step back and someone else can use it. But let's just do this really quick. If you're on a wall, you can do this on a wall too. So wall sit, come down into a 90-degree angle, and then just come up 2 inches. We want to put a little stress on the front of that knee. Don't go down yet. Come up real quick. And I'm going to ask you guys to try to hold it for 45 seconds. Okay, ready? You don't have to do this either. I mean, you could even, if you wanted to, you could use this and hold something, but you don't have to. Okay, ready? Everybody? Legs are apart yet, so just like a normal squat, hip width apart, and then try not to have the band bent. It might hurt your... There you go. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, ready? Down for 45. 3, 2, down and hold. Okay. So right now, you want to shift your weight heavy in the heels. You want to take your big toe, and you want to squeeze that big toe into the floor like you're gripping the ground with a hand. From there, take your knees and pull those knees just slightly out to the side so that they're now aligned with the pinky toes. From here, start to apply pressure and send the signal a little harder by pushing the floor away from you. What is the maximum amount you can push into the floor without standing up? Without standing up, you have 5 seconds, and you have 3, 2, slowly stand up and release. Oh, did anyone feel, let's just say, did anyone feel pain on that? Like bad, sharp pain. So you didn't have the wall or the Spanish squat, so that kind of shows that like that's going to be the hardest version when you're doing it with your own body weight. So that's understandable. Anybody else feel pain? Where do you feel pain at? In the bottom? On the top. On the top. So this here, you have your 4 quads that all combine, and there's a tissue here called your quad tendon. This is actually called a ligament. I'm not, this is kind of like this is kind of like semantics, but this is actually called a ligament because it's a bone to bone and it's holding on. But it got the name patella tendon, so it's just stuck. This is actually your quadricep tendon. So for you, I would say that this here, this whole complex, is probably something that you could work on, and it could probably alleviate your knee pain if you just work on the flexibility of your quad and those psoas muscles, and we'll go over stretches there. Did anyone else feel pain? It kind of, on the outside? So what could that have been? The TFL pulling on the IT band and pulling on the outside of that knee. So for you, you might want to release the TFL. So these are ways for you to kind of distinguish what could be going on with your knee. For most of us, we should have felt the challenge. We should have felt the muscular challenge, and we should have felt an isometric hold and maybe even a little pressure on the front of our knee. But when you feel that pressure, what you did was you created little tiny damage in that muscle for the food and nutrition that you eat and the hydration to go right to that joint to go rebuild it. So you just created stress that can then go to rebuild. And the trick is if you take the gelatin and the vitamin C an hour before you do this, you will get maximum healing properties to get to your destination the fastest. So you can do that twice a day. It's a commitment. I'm not saying it's not a commitment, but that's one way to get out of knee pain fast. Yeah.
Is this the same like a wall sit basically?
Basically, so the Spanish squat is taking the entire load that you're asking it to do, and it's putting it right here. When it comes to the wall sit you're supported, so it's a little easier. You're also, it's called a closed chain, so your feet and your body are closed, and that means that you're kind of applying, what's the word? Maybe if I do this, I can think of it. You're taking the force and you're distributing it evenly, whereas the Spanish squat, it's mostly just right here. Yeah, really good question. Okay, so that's the Spanish squat. Let's take, can I borrow yours, Simon? So check this out. There's another one that you can do with this one, and this isn't going to be so much as the bison rows. You can't really do this, but you're going to take your body and you're going to put that band. I'm going to put it on top because this is a huge band, and I'm going to walk out until I feel it pulling my leg, and then I'm going to drop down into a squat. So what's happening here? I have these muscles. I have these muscles holding me up and trying to hold myself from pulling myself that way. I have these muscles here stabilizing, and now I hold this for 45 seconds. And I try to put in all the checkpoints. I put in big toe into the earth, squeezing, I'm creating an arch with the muscles of my foot, I'm stabilizing, I got my pelvic tucked, I'm really isometrically holding a stretch on this quad and the bottom of this tendon. You will feel, I'm already starting to sweat. Woo, okay. And then you can turn around and do the other side. So what you're asking the body to do is use muscles to fight an external force, and you're holding yourself in an isometric position. So important for those of you that are experiencing pain with tendons or with strength to work on isometric contractions before you go into full range of motion exercises. Cool? I'm sweating. Does anyone have questions on that? Those bands, 8 of them for 25 bucks on Amazon. I would say invest, and you can hook them up to anything. Okay. I'm going to skip those. What time are we at?
10.
Oh, I'm late. Okay, guys, I'll try to get this one going faster. Okay, so let's go with ankle mobility. And I'm not going to ask you to do this unless you want to do this, but I'm just going to go through these really quick. You can video me. The combat stretch. You're in a kneeling position with one leg going this way, and you can do it with me if you like, one knee going this way. We're going to try to mobilize this ankle and get it to go into a dorsiflexed position, the position of a flexed ankle. Take your hand, and you're going to put your hand on your heel so that that calcaneus bone does not move. Take your knee, take it outside and forward as far as you can over your pinky toe. Now you can hold it here, you can put a weight on your knee, and you can do this one, and you can hold it for time, but you could also create a little bit of a contraction. So when I do this, I try to pull my toes up towards my nose. I'm not going to feel any movement, but then from here, I hold it maybe for 10 seconds, and then I rock back, and I try to keep this gap the same distance as I rock back. So I'm going to rock back, and I'm going to use the muscles of the front of my leg to pull. So I'm putting myself into the position, holding, I'm pulling my toes up to my nose, I'm holding, and then I'm rocking back, and I'm trying to use muscular strength to pull. All that I'm doing is I'm getting into the position, mobility, I'm strengthening, flex, fire, and then I'm asking my body to do that in a moving position. That's for the ankles. If you, does anyone have a hard time squatting and they go up like this, under their toes? Who does that? Yeah? Jen, can you be my demonstrator? Thank you. I know, you probably didn't realize. So, do a normal squat right there. Your deep squat's actually pretty good. Okay, so see how she does that right there? Now, step up on that slant board. This takes the ankle mobility out of it. And you see that? Look at how pretty that squat is. The only thing that we changed was the angle that we asked her ankle to do. If her ankle can't go forward enough to get her butt down to the floor, then her toes are going to come up. But if you can minimize that ankle mobility, you can still work on deep squats. So, what's another way you can do this? If you don't have a slant board, take 2 new bells, 2 5-pound new bells, take a pair of plates, and step up on the plate. Do a normal squat in. Yep, a little lower. That's pretty good. Yeah, you can't really. Yeah, anyone else have trouble with their ankles when they squat? This will fix it right here, I guarantee you. Yeah, let's do Susan. Susan, come here. Sorry, didn't mean. Okay, so stand here, do a normal squat, show everybody a normal squat. Pretty good. Chest falls forward, knees to 90 degrees, but not much lower than that. Now stand up. Weight on the heels. Now watch. Boom. Chest is upright. Booty's all the way down to the floor. Her ankle mobility is one of her limiting factors to her squat. If she can work on her ankle mobility, she will be able to get into a deep squat. And if she can get into a deep squat, she starts to strengthen the muscles in the deep squat, and you will become a better all-around athlete. And I say athlete in the sense of just how we live life every single day. So if you're doing squats, again, this is a Band-Aid, it's a crutch, but it is a way to get into a position to strengthen some of the muscles that you might not normally be able to strengthen when you do exercises. That's a huge hack that some people really enjoy. Let's pass the banded tippy toe. That's this one. We do lateral walks all the time. But for the ankles, if you come up on your toes and you do the same thing, you'll really feel some good ankle strengtheners there. So instead of doing lateral walks, which are great for the outside of the glutes, another great exercise to strengthen knees, to help with the knees, you can also do it from the tippy toes out. This mini band, super cheap online. Another one, if you're someone that has a hard time rotating your tibia, in order to minimize the rotation that happens at the knee, take a band, go barefoot, and take this band underneath your big toe. Once it's underneath your big toe, pull it out. Don't let it come out. So what you're doing is you're forcing that big toe joint, and you're forcing the muscles underneath your foot to do the work. And now, push this knee out. So now you're keeping stable on the ankle, and you're helping out here, and all the muscles out here. So for reps and hold, the longer you hold, you'll really feel this when you do that. Really great exercise. So that's the ankles. The hips, we do this one all the time, the 90-90 stretch. You're trying to get the chest square. One day you'll be able to do this without touching, which is really tough. Requires a lot of strength out here. Go into the position, get that joint stretched into the position that you can, as far as you can go, and then you're not done. You're applying tension. So I'm pushing into the floor, which is going to activate the muscles that try to externally rotate my knee, and I'm pushing into the floor for time. 10 seconds, 15 seconds. You should start sweating like me. It is not an easy, just passive, lay down. You are activating. And from here, you might even sit up tall, try to lift that back leg. Really tough. Yeah. Now, if you need to make these easier, your feet come closer, but you're minimizing the joint. So I would much rather you go to the 90 degree and just go less deep than to pull the feet in. Cool? So Shane, take your legs at a 90, and so bring that front leg at a 90 degree. Yep. And then bring your front knee, your back knee this way a little, and then that foot out this way. Now, right? So that 90 degree is like the most important part. Yeah. Oh, okay. You can do that on both sides. What else? The 90-90 is my favorite stretch to do. And guys, this is going to be a lot of information, and I've tried to help people and give them the best program that they could possibly do, and it's like 10 exercises long, it's 30 minutes of work. What you need to do is you need to stack whatever one of these works with something that you just do sedentary. So yesterday I was working on the computer, I was putting this together, and I could have sat at a desk, and I could have done typing, and I could have put this all together. But what did I do? I put my laptop on the floor, and I was here, and I was here, and I was here. Right? It's like a weirdo. Of course, you're going to have to be a weirdo if you don't want to mold yourself into the average of what we always are. So pick, like, watching Netflix at night, have your glass of wine, and do your mobility. Sip, stretch, You put a nice big blanket on the floor, put some cushions on the floor, make it as enticing as possible. You have range that will allow you to automatically do this, because if I gave you 20 exercises that lasted an hour, you guys would never do it. No one would ever do it. I wouldn't do it. I'll tell myself that for sure. Pick one exercise that you love, that feels the best, and incorporate it with something that is very stationary, static, that you don't normally do. Yeah, cool. Frog rocker or adductor rocker. So this one's important for the hips. This one we do in class all the time. Watch my back foot. The back foot is the most important part here. You can have your toe up, or to make it more challenging, you can frogger that foot. Start with the toe down, shift your hips back, and then from here, again, we're not just passively resting. We have now got ourselves into a position that is stretched, and you want to activate those muscles in that stretched position. So what do? I push the foot into the floor, fire up those inner thigh muscles, I squeeze and I hold as hard as I can for 5 or 10 seconds, and then I release, and then I come right back in, and I do it again. And I feel out what feels tight, and I feel out what feels right, and I just activate the muscles, and I make sure that I do this frequently, and if I do it frequently, it becomes stronger, and I then am able to get into this position pain-free, and it helps alleviate the tightness on the joints that support it. If you want the full thing, the frogger is going to be the hardest. So you're taking your knees out wider than your hips, and you're pushing, oh, this one is real tough, real tough. You're probably going to want a mat for your knees if you do this. I've seen yoga instructors who can get this all the way on the floor, and they just lay on the floor. And sorry, Siri. From there, okay, so we did the ankles, we did the hips, and did anyone take the lunge skill session? The lunge skill session? All those exercises that we did in the lunge skill session, they apply to the knee. So let's talk about strengthening the knee. Everyone find a bench and stand on a bench. If you're on the bikes, you're going to use your bike seat. If you're on the rowers, you're going to use your rower fan. And if you're on the floor, you can always hold on to the TRX, or you can do it with me body weight. So we're going to do some knee strengthening step downs. This is called the Harlequin step down. And essentially, we want to, it would be nice. These are industrialized doorstops. You can buy these for like $8, or you can buy this for like $80. I use it every day, so I bought an $80 slant board. I'm weird like that. You should go to my house and see all the toys. But these work just as fine. This, where your ankle is elevated, is going to be the gold standard of what we're trying to get to. From here, you're going to take your heel, and you're going to step down, like you step down the stairs, and you're going to tap that heel. Our goal is to get this knee as forward as we can, and we're going to try to take all of our body weight and push it out that front knee and stress that front tendon. This could be a very, very tender, painful spot for a lot of us. So be gentle on this. And what you want to do is, rather than pushing off of that foot, you want to push off of your toe of your bench foot and use this muscle to stand up. So it's your hip is going to want to collapse and your knees want to collapse, but you want to go slowly and you want to just barely touch down. Use the force of your patella tendon ligament, standing back up. Does anyone feel pain when they do that? Yeah, that's going to be that. So you could do this in a couple different ways. You can lower and just tap here. And then the higher up you go, let's see, I think it's the higher up you go, the more you're going to be able to strengthen that. So what you're doing is the pain that you feel, you're either stressing that tendon to a point where it's not strong enough, or there's actual structural damage in there where you're rubbing bone against bone, or meniscus is getting squished. But you need to be able to do this movement. This is the movement that happens when you go downstairs, right? So the best way to find it is to find the lowest level that does not cause sharp pain. Do it until it doesn't hurt anymore, or do it until you feel strong, and then progress. And eventually, you'll be able to pop it up, and you'll be able to hit a full. So if you go, look at my hip though, because my hip's going to probably come forward. So that's how much I can do. If I go too high, this hip, it wants to open up like that, and that's what we want to avoid. You just want the stress to go out the knee and come back up. Same thing, laterally. Laterally, we can go to the side of the bench and tap down, stand up with the knee drive. Tap down. Notice that I'm trying to push my knees over my toes, and I'm using the ligament and tendon strength to stand up. And then I'm balancing and stabilizing the hip. If you want to make it harder, you can tap out to this. I think I've seen some of you guys doing this in class before, where you take and push that heel out to the side, or eventually come down into that single leg squat. All levels, there's all levels that you can do there. What else? So you got the Harlequin step down, where you're on a bench and you're stepping forward. Anytime you go downstairs, guys, awesome opportunity to practice. Someone's going to watch you guys and you're going to be like, what the hell is Shane doing right now? But if you do that at home, you can do that. Just tap, come back up, go down the stair. Tap, come back up, go down the stair. And now you've done a set on your way to whatever. Yeah.
So, Coach, the goal is to actually have the knee out past the toe?
Past the toes. So I was taught for my first 10 years of being a personal trainer, never let the knees go past the toes. Why? For the same reason that a doctor would tell you not to squat or deadlift if you come in with back pain. To protect you. To protect you, that's all. But if you're protecting yourself, you will never get past that point of being strong enough to do it. Ever. If you never ask me to do it, you will never be able to do it. So what you're trying to do is I want to find that level. Lean into pain. Lean into discomfort. I want to find that level where I can do it. I feel the sensation. It's not comfortable. I don't love it. But if I do this enough, it becomes strong enough, and that sensation is nothing. And what do I do then? Pop up the elevation, add some weight. The most famous knee guy, his name is Ben Patrick, and his handle on Instagram is Knees Over Toes Guy. Has anyone heard of Knees Over Toes Guy? He is amazing. You should follow his stuff. He has an amazing program that will help you with knee pain. He's awesome. He did everything for free for the first like 10 years that I followed him. So his famous lunge is called an ATG lunge, ass to grass lunge. And what you want to do is you want to push your knee as far as you can over your toe. You can elevate yourself, you can elevate your heel if that bothers your ankle, but this is the position you want to be in, a slight decline with the toe. And from here, I'm using the front of my knee and my quad to push myself back. So I'm going into it, I'm applying tension, I'm finding it, and eventually I can start holding dumbbells, and eventually I can go down on the ground. And I can do this from this position. I'm putting a beautiful stretch on my back leg, which will help with my mobility of my hip and my ankle, or I'm sorry, my knee. And then from here, I can just stand up. The number one thing that we were told not to do, that's what we're trying to do to get us to be able to be strong enough. And so elevating is the option. Using your hands is the option. And then slowly working your way to get there. This is kind of where it gets sketchy for me being a personal trainer and not a doctor, but like lean into the stuff that causes pain and do it repeatedly until you feel like it's something that you're strong enough to do. Reverse Nordics. Does anyone want to try this with me? So you're here in this position and you're going to lean back. And so the first variation is this, where you sit your hips back, you're leaning back, and you sit up. Right now you're using the quads to pull yourself in. Does that cause pain for anyone? Probably. Yeah, a little bit of pain. So you would want to either put a cushion under your knees and put a towel under your seat so you're here. But eventually, you're going to go here. Straight line from knees, hips, shoulders. And coming up. Right? Yeah. Yeah, that'll help. I was the guy who got a knee injury, remember? I was the guy that didn't touch my toes. I earned my way to get to that. So that's like a very, very cool thing that you can do on the carpet. You might want to put a pillow under your knees. You can lean forward a little bit to assist. Once you can do sets of that, you'll start to strengthen, you'll start to lean back. Reverse Nordics. Okay. Let's do some that are a little bit, I got three more if you guys have time. So we're going to go clamshell to hip bridge. On this one, you can do this without the band at all if you'd like to. You're laying with your knees at 90 degrees on the floor into a side plank is the goal, so up on your forearm. From here, you're going to open up your knees with the outside of your glutes, and you're going to require the entire lower side of your body to go up into a plank. So it looks like this. I take my elbow and my knee, and I open up, and I hold. And so now I'm using this muscle here to be able to open up that band. I'm using this muscle, and this muscle to hold me up. All muscles that stabilize the knee. And then I lower back down. I go up and back down. So a little awkward exercise, to be honest. You could always just do the clamshell. You could always just do the side planks. Side planks are amazing because it's an isometric hold, just like the sissy squat, just like the wall squat, only now I'm asking the entire lower side to work, which is why we always do this exercise, which I love that we do this. Or here's the challenge that I always give you, the Copenhagen plank. For the inside of your thigh, you're isometrically holding all the muscles that support that knee joint. So if you can do this from your high knee, or your high plank, or your low plank. You can do this from an elevated surface from your high, or you can do this from an elevated surface from your low. Whatever gets you to feel that inside muscle holding you strong. All of those side planks are great. And then I want to show you one more, the sissy squat with the wall. So if you get to a wall, this is a sissy squat. You're going to put your knees over your toes and come down. Super challenging for most people. That's going to be an exercise. Some people can do it like this. You can use a TRX. But what am I doing? I'm essentially asking the force of all my weight to go out my patella. The goal is to spend time there. When you spend time there, you cause damage. When you cause damage and you eat the right food, you rebuild stronger, better, faster. That's kind of the whole thing on this exercise.
Can we do it on the wall again? Can we
What's
do it on the wall again?
the wall? Okay, yeah. So the wall, you can use as much external force as you need to. You're coming up onto your tippy toes, and you're trying to angle your knees as far forward as you can. You can use as much of the upper body as you need. Maybe put a mat underneath your knees for support. But again, trying to lean into some discomfort. Feel the force out the front of the knee. Find the level that you can do. And then, so see how Shane did that again? So he's dropping his butt. We want to keep the butt up. So what I want you to do is reach your knees. See the difference on that? You don't have to go all the way down. Did you feel the difference on that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so instead of using my glutes to stretch, which this was exaggerated, this wasn't what you were doing exactly, but instead of going butt down, it's knees forward. Yeah. Yeah. And see, partial range of motion, great. She's putting stress on that ligament. To that point is where she will get stronger, and eventually she can go an inch lower, an inch lower. Yeah, just 3 or 4, right? Woo. Okay, guys, I think, and then if you are someone that is like in extreme pain, and you can't do anything that I just showed you, here are the 3 exercises that you want to do to get to those exercises. The 3 exercises that strengthen around the joint but don't require the knee to work at all are hip thrusts. Hip thrusts, so remember, pull the back down, hip thrust. RDLs, straight leg deadlifts, which we do all the time. And then standing calf raises. Those 3 exercises will strengthen the muscles around the knee to maybe get you to one point to be able to do the heel elevated squats, the tap downs, all the polypen squats, stuff like that. Cool. Are you guys as sweaty as I am? Sweet. That's all I have for you guys. I know I took you over. I apologize. Can we do a quick photo?
Sure.
Yeah! Right over there in the white area. Let's do that. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you investing some time out of your Sunday to get better. This is like, if we can educate ourselves onto why it's happening, we don't have to be frustrated every time we come in here. You don't have to keep asking me about options. Let's go right over there. You can take any equipment you want to. But it's all about educating yourself. What is the basics? Yeah, you guys can come forward. Right over here. And then I'll go in front.
We can be on our knees.
Yeah. Should we get on our knees? Let's get on our knees. Everyone do something that causes extreme pain in your nose. Just kidding. Okay. Timer is set for 10 seconds. You have, where to go? There it is. 10. And, oh, wait, hold on. Stop. Okay. All right. And 10. Hey, you're good, you're good. Thanks, friends. I appreciate you. I hope you guys have a great day. I'm going to email you everything that we talked about today, and if it doesn't make sense, just email me back. Hey, could you remind me what this is, and I'll send you a YouTube video or something. Cool. Appreciate you. Have a great day. Thank you. I appreciate that.
This is super helpful.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for your
Thanks,
time.
Archie.
I have a question. So what causes those? Oh.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So buffered C, do you use buffered C or NC?
Vitamin C, so that's the thing. I haven't found a great vitamin C supplement that I like because of this absorbic acid thing that just came out.
Yeah.
All the vitamin C that I buy has absorbic acid in it, and they said that it's not well absorbed by the human body. So I'm like, what should I
if
do?
you buffer it, that's
do
why
that?
they make, so there's, I think the company's called Thorn, Thorn.
Thorn, yes.
And they have a buffered C that has the buffer in it so that the vitamin C or ascorbic acid gets absorbed.
That's good to know because some of the most biggest experts that I follow, so I'll have to,
Yeah,
I'll have to check it out.
I wanted to discuss that because I was like, well, is that, I wanted to actually verify that because, you know, you hear a lot of stuff and I don't know if, you know, some guy does it or not.
That's
so,
interesting. Okay, I'll check it out and I'll send that website as a link because I think that is one of the higher qualities. I mean, it's obviously more expensive, but you get what you pay for.
So how is vitamin C related to like joint health?
Vitamin C is the, when it comes to, I actually don't know that answer as well as I should, but the people that I follow that say the gelatin, gelatin needs vitamin C to be able to go to the places that it needs to go. So it's like a transporter, I think. I'm not positive, so don't quote me on that, but they say that the studies that are done, it works if you are if you take the vitamin C better than if you didn't take it at all. So I think it's kind of like a conduit thing to get to that. But I'll do more research.
After she answered the question on exercise.
Cool, yeah.
So the Jellos are just like Jello?
Jello, yeah. Buy the box of Jello, or you
Any flavor or without flavor?
any flavor, yeah. Strawberry, raspberry, anything. I know. So
But sugar-free.
Sugar-free.
It doesn't have saccharose.
I think you can have some. You can have some artificial sweeteners if you support that. Some people don't, but you can also buy like beef gelatin or gelatin from bone, and you can buy that on Amazon, and you just take scoops of it, and you make it just like you
That
make.
tastes
Like, great, great, but it's just like a little thing. So, or you could also buy gelatin and just mix it in water, and then vitamin C and just drink it. So.
The other thing is vitamin C and carbohydrates don't go together. That's why orange juice is not beneficial. So the idea is to have, if you want like artificial sweeteners, if they don't have a modified form of sugar, like, you know, because for example, like fructose, glucose, sucrose, all have the same ring structure.
Yeah.
So they're all going to interfere with absorption. But as long as the sweetener is in the same ring structure,
It's in the same one?
So like
ring structure, like it's a hexagon ring structure that sugars have.
So there's a couple that people support. What are the
Stevia and
stevia and monk fruit? Yeah, those are the ones that we look for.
And my question back to the bone spurs. What causes those to grow? They just grow
They grow from not having any, like, yeah, so like if you put stress on a bone and then you don't have any movement in that area, stress, the body then starts to build little bone deposits. So it's the same thing as like when you're going for impact and you're doing jumps, like you're telling your bones, you're actually putting stress on the bones every time you jump, and your body goes to rebuild that bone stronger.
Right.
So
just keep moving.
Just keep moving.
It's a lubricated
100%. And hydrate, yep,
Yeah, the bone spurs.
100%.
You know how putting this stuff
Oh, I'm
back?
okay. Jen, you're amazing.
Just up against the wall.
That would be amazing. Yeah, thank you.
And then the videos or those kind of
Yeah, I don't need to. You want me to send? I'll send you everything that I just put on the screen.
yeah, you're gonna send your notes.
Yeah. Cool. Sweet. Thanks for coming, Jill.
So I have gotten pretty good with my ankles since I started doing those raises in the gym.
Nice.
And I think my issue is that my patella is rotated outwards.
Yeah.
So when I try to do this, I'm already like, this is already going
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So is there a way I maybe putting a band on? Like how can I protect that?
Definitely band, but I think it's just you have to find a lower surface.
Okay.
Or you have to elevate your foot. So if you like do it here.
Okay.
So if you put your foot all the way on here and you step down, it'll probably
Oh, I see.
you can do it here. So if you stand here and you go tap,
Like
tap, tap.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's just the surface elevation. You just gotta work a little bit lower, and then as you get more flex, and then you're gonna want to work on your hip mobility, right?
Yeah.
The 90-90s. You're
So
gonna,
when I'm doing this, going to the hips, so I feel like I'm doing this. Am I supposed to stay like this or like this?
it's okay if you hinge from the hips.
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. You actually want to.
Okay.
But you need to work on your 90-90s
Yeah.
and your froggers. Just like
Okay.
me. Yeah. Cool.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. I'm going to turn this stuff on most of the time. Weird. At 2 o'clock, yeah? Or at 10 o'clock.
I love it.
That was something called the bull. Yeah, so long with those back. Yeah, let me